The morning rush had just ended, leaving the small-town diner with the faint smell of coffee and the clinking of cutlery fading into quiet. Emily wiped her brow with the back of her hand, exhaustion etched into her face though the day had only just begun. She had been awake since dawn, juggling 2 jobs, barely making enough to cover rent and her younger brother's school fees. Her eyes were heavy, but her spirit carried something stronger than fatigue and unshakable will to keep going, no matter how hard life became. But on that particular morning, something unusual happened, something so small at first glance, yet powerful enough to change the course of her life forever. A man she had never seen before, dressed in plain clothes, not flashy or proud, walked into the diner. He looked like any ordinary customer. He ordered just a simple cup of coffee and sat silently, watching the world pass by from the corner booth. When the bill came, he patted his pockets and realized he didn't have his wallet. His face tightened in embarrassment, as though he didn't want to cause a scene. Emily looked at him with tired but kind eyes. She understood what it felt like to not have enough. She had been there more times than she could count. Without hesitation, she reached into her apron pocket, already holding the little money she had earned from the morning shift, and paid for his coffee. It was only a few dollars, but in that moment, it felt like she had given away something much greater, because every dollar mattered in her fragile budget. She smiled softly and said, "Don't worry about it. Some days are just harder than others." Little did Emily know, the man she had just helped was not a struggling stranger. He was, in fact, the silent owner of the very restaurant she was working in. And her simple act of kindness would change not only her future but also the lives of those she loved. Sparkles if you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the power of small actions to transform lives. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Spark. Your support helps us bring more inspiring stories like this to light. Sparkles. Emily's life was anything but easy. At just 24, she had already faced storms most people twice her age had never encountered. Her father had passed away when she was still in high school, leaving her mother to work long hours until illness forced her to stop. Now Emily carried the weight of providing for her family, working days at the diner and nights at a local grocery store, trying to hold her world together piece by piece. She dreamed of becoming a nurse, of wearing the uniform that symbolized compassion and healing, but that dream had been pushed far down the road. Life's realities, rent, electricity bills, school expenses for her little brother, had buried it under the rubble of responsibilities. Still, she never complained. She simply smiled at customers, wiped down tables, and kept pushing forward because that was all she knew how to do. That day, after covering the man's coffee, Emily didn't think about it again. It was just a small act of kindness, something she hoped anyone would do in her place. But the man thought about it. He thought about it deeply. For years, he had been the kind of owner who stayed in the shadows, allowing his managers to run the restaurant while he observed quietly from a distance. He believed true character revealed itself when no one was watching, and in Emily, he saw something rare, a genuine heart that acted without expecting anything in return. The next few days, the man returned. Each time he came, he sat quietly, ordered a simple meal or coffee, and watched. He noticed how Emily spoke gently to an elderly couple who were struggling with their food, cutting their pancakes so they wouldn't have to. He saw her slip a cookie into a little girl's hand when her parents weren't looking, just to see her smile. He even caught her staying behind after her shift, helping wash dishes when she wasn't required to, simply because the dishwasher was sick and the kitchen was overwhelmed. Every gesture was small, but to him, it painted a clear picture. This young waitress was not only hardworking but also carried a heart of gold, the kind of employee who could lift an entire restaurant's spirit. Yet beneath her kindness, he could see the fatigue, the quiet weight she carried on her shoulders. Then came the stormiest week of Emily's life. Her brother fell sick, and the medical bills piled higher than she could afford. She began working double shifts without breaks, her face growing pale, her eyes ringed with exhaustion. The managers noticed, but they only cared about the diner running smoothly. Emily never asked for help, not wanting to burden anyone, but her struggle was visible in every heavy step she took. The owner, whose name was Daniel, though Emily still didn't know, watched silently. And that's when he decided it was time to reveal himself. On a rainy Tuesday afternoon, when the diner was nearly empty, Daniel asked to speak with Emily after her shift. She walked over, nervous, thinking she had done something wrong.
But instead of reprimanding her, he looked at her kindly and said, "Emily, do you know who I am?"
She shook her head, confused. He smiled and said, "I own this place." Her eyes widened, shock stealing her words. She stammered an apology, terrified she might have made mistakes or offended him unknowingly. But he raised his hand gently to stop her.
"No, Emily. You have nothing to apologize for.
In fact, I owe you gratitude.
A week ago, you paid for my coffee when you thought I couldn't afford it.
That may have seemed small to you, but it showed me who you really are, someone who gives even when they have little to spare." Tears welled in her eyes as she realized the weight of what he was saying.
But what Daniel said next changed everything. "I've been looking for someone like you.
Not just a worker, but a person who carries kindness and integrity in everything they do. From today, I want to offer you something more than just waitressing shifts.
I want to sponsor your education. I know you dream of becoming a nurse. I've heard you mention it to customers. Let me help you make that dream real. You deserve it."
Emily froze, unable to breathe, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might break. No one had ever offered her something so life-changing. Her instinct was to refuse, to say she didn't deserve it, but Daniel's firm, gentle expression told her he believed in her when she no longer believed in herself.
Over the following months, Emily's life began to transform.
Daniel arranged for her shifts to be flexible, covering her tuition fees and ensuring she had the time to study. He didn't just give her financial support, he gave her something more precious: belief, encouragement, and a reminder that dreams could be revived no matter how deeply they'd been buried. Emily poured her heart into her studies, just as she had poured it into her work. She graduated top of her class, her uniform crisp and her smile brighter than it had ever been. Through every sleepless night of studying, every exam, every tear, she remembered the moment she had paid for a stranger's coffee, and how that single act of kindness had set off a chain of miracles.
And Daniel?
He never stopped quietly watching, proud of the young woman who had once been just a waitress in his diner. He knew that in helping her, he had not only changed her life but also reignited his own faith in humanity. By the time Emily walked across the graduation stage, her mother and brother cheering in the crowd, Daniel was there too. Not as a shadowy owner anymore, but as a mentor, a friend, and a reminder that kindness always comes full circle. Emily went on to work in a hospital, helping countless patients with the same compassion she had once shown in a small diner. Every life she touched became another ripple in the wave of kindness she had started with something as small as paying for a cup of coffee. Her story became a living testament that no act of kindness is ever wasted, and sometimes, the smallest gestures are the ones that change everything. Sparkling heart, if this story touched your heart, please like, share, comment, and subscribe to Kindness Spark. Together, we can spread more stories that remind the world of the power of compassion. Glowing star special request, comment below. Kindness always comes back if you believe that one small act can change someone's life forever.